Hello my friend, thank you for choosing this video. Before we dive into the story, let's take a second to subscribe. Your 1 second will give me an immense boost. Also, do let me know once after you wake up if you had a peaceful sleep. Let's dive right in.
Chapter 1. The Whisper Before the World. Before there were stars, before there were winds, before the rustle of leaves or the hush of moonlight, there was only silence. Not silence as we know it, not an absence of sound, but a full, velvet hush that wrapped the cosmos in a soft, eternal sleep. This silence wasn't empty. It breathed, it dreamed, it waited. And in that waiting, something ancient stirred. This was chaos, not a storm or a whirlwind, but a vast, yawning space, a gentle nothingness. Imagine standing at the edge of sleep, just before you drift off. That strange, soft place where everything is still possible. That was chaos. It held within it the seeds of all things, but none had yet bloomed. In this stillness, the first breath was taken, not by a mouth or a creature, but by the world itself. And from that breath came Gaia, the earth, the quiet mother of all. She did not arrive with fire or fury. She simply was. Solid, soft, and steady. Imagine the feeling of laying your head on mossy ground, cool and safe. That was Gaia. From the folds of chaos, more companions emerged. There was Tartarus, the deep place, not dark with fear, but vast with mystery. A place where forgotten thoughts drifted, and where dreams went to rest. And then there was Eros, the gentle spark of longing, not a fire, but a warm glow in the heart, a hum that connected all things to each other. And so the world began not with a bang, but with a sigh, a tender unfolding. Gaia, full of love, longed for company. She reached deep into herself and gave rise to Uranus, the sky. He was not harsh or loud, but wide and watching. He stretched himself over Gaia like a blanket, and they lay together in quiet embrace. From their union came the first children, the Titans, not wild giants, but slow-moving thoughts, each with their own rhythm and glow. As the world grew, Gaia shaped valleys for rivers that had not yet flowed. She whispered to the stars that had not yet formed. Her lullabies stirred the clouds into motion, and Uranus, from above, blinked starlight into being, one twinkle at a time. It wasn't rushed. Nothing was. Time itself was still curling like steam, not yet linear, not yet measured. The world was being woven gently. There were no gods yet who ruled, no battles, no thunder, just Gaia breathing, Uranus watching, chaos humming, Eros weaving threads of connection between every newborn idea. In the silence, Nyx, the night, unfurled her cloak. She was not frightening. She didn't hide things. She soothed them. Her presence was a blanket, her voice the sound of water on stone. She carried with her Hypnos, sleep, who wandered between Gaia's roots and Uranus's stars, whispering dreams into their unborn children. The stars were still learning how to shine, the mountains still deciding where to stand. But even in this newborn world, there was rhythm, a beat, a pulse. The same soft beat that lives in your chest right now as your eyes begin to close. And so, the first chapter of the world wasn't written in fire or ink. It was cradled into being, like a child being sung to sleep. Close your eyes, breathe with the earth, float in the sky, drift in the space between. You are not separate from the myth. You are part of its dreaming. Sleep now, for the forest of Olympus grows with each breath you take. Chapter 2. The sky and the earth, Gaia, the earth, rested in her green silence, slowly growing, gently expanding. Beneath her surface, life curled in dreams not yet born. And above her, Uranus, the sky, opened wide with star-pierced stillness, cloaking her in soft blue and golden hues. Theirs was not a rushed love or a loud creation. It was a slow unfolding, a dance made of patience. Gaia was warm, full of hills and hollow places. Uranus, cool and eternal, stretched into the infinite. Together, they whispered dreams into existence. Their union was the comfort of night and the hope of morning. When rain first fell, it wasn't a storm. It was a kiss from the sky to the earth, droplets like lullabies falling gently into Gaia's open hands. From this union came many children, not all at once, but one heartbeat at a time. The first were the Titans, who moved not with noise, but with presence. Each Titan embodied something steady. Oceanus was the endless river that circled the world. Hyperion, the Titan of light, did not shine like the sun, but glowed like memory. Theia held the sparkle of hidden things. Each name was a sigh on the wind, a moment stretched into form. The Titans were not born for war. They were born for balance. Their purpose was not to conquer, but to support. Like beams holding up a quiet sky, Chaos, the axis of wisdom, listened more than he spoke. Phoebe, radiant in thought, was the whisper of instinct. Mnemosyne carried memory as softly as a lullaby. Cronus, the last, came with time not as a ticking clock, but as the deep breath between seasons. They were children of earth and sky, resting in the cradle of creation. Yet not all the children brought ease. In the deepest caves of Gaia, new shapes stirred. There were cyclopes, one-eyed beings of simplicity and strength. Not monsters, but makers, crafting light from stone. There were hecatonkaias, 100-handed and vast, who hugged the world too tightly. These children were harder to cradle, their dreams too loud, their limbs too many. Uranus, uncertain of them, became withdrawn. He blanketed the sky tighter, pressing down on Gaia. What once was love grew weighty. Gaia, still gentle, still maternal, felt her breath shorten beneath his closeness. She did not scream. She did not rebel in fire. She simply felt, and with that feeling, planted a seed of change. Gaia called to her Titan children, not in rage, but in need. She asked for balance, for space. Only Cronus, quiet and thoughtful, stepped forward. His hands did not tremble. With a curved blade born of Gaia's stone, he gently lifted Uranus from the earth. It was not violence. It was the drawing of breath, a return to harmony. From that moment, the sky drifted just far enough to let the earth stretch, to let rivers run, to let trees reach. And from Uranus's tears that fell into the sea, Aphrodite, the beauty of pure longing, would one day rise. But that is another dream, waiting down another path. Uranus did not vanish. He became the dome above dreams. Gaia, with space to move, rolled in green waves, singing new songs. The Titans stood in peace, like ancient trees. And in that restored balance, the world breathed again. Time curled around the edges. Night followed day in a slow, sleepy spiral. And the children of the earth and sky, even those too large, too strange, too quiet, all found a place to rest. The lullaby of the world continued, gentle as mist over mountains. Sleep now, for the earth still cradles you, and the sky still watches. Chapter 3. Cronus and the Gentle Clock of Ages. In the golden hush of the world's early days, time moved like honey, slow, warm, and without edges. There were no clocks, no ticking seconds, no chasing hours, just one moment stretching softly into the next, like ripples in a calm lake. And into this still, unfolding dream, the Titan Cronus came to be. Cronus was born not as a tyrant, but as a keeper, a guardian of the gentle rhythms. He didn't count time, he cradled it. Tall and thoughtful, with eyes like dusk, Cronus moved with a grace that made even the stars pause. When he blinked, centuries passed. When he smiled, seasons turned. He walked between Gaia, the ever-loving earth, and Uranus, the quiet sky. They gave him the task of watching the moments, not ruling them, not hoarding them, but guiding them like a lantern through shadow. Cronus felt the breath of the soil and the whisper of clouds. He listened to seeds sleeping in the dark and to rain rehearsing its descent in the folds of the sky. He watched petals turn slowly toward the sun. Everything he touched began to remember itself. A sense of before and after blossomed, gently, within all things. With Cronus, the world began to understand patience. Trees didn't just grow, they matured. Rivers didn't just flow, they remembered where they had been. And dreams, once scattered, began to carry echoes of themselves from night to night. But the story of Cronus was also the story of change, not violent or jarring, but necessary, like exhaling after a long breath. You see, Uranus, the Sky Father, had begun to grow distant. He stretched too far, and the light he offered became cold. Gaia, the Ever-Mother, felt her children beneath her soil stir uncomfortably. She called upon Cronus, not with anger, but with a lullaby of longing. "Help me," she whispered. "Bring balance back. Make room for new growth." Cronus, ever gentle, listened. He did not rise with thunder. He did not shout. Instead, he took up a sickle, not a weapon, but a tool shaped like the moon, a symbol of harvest and rhythm. He reached to the sky and folded it back slightly, just enough to let Gaia breathe again. This act, remembered later as rebellion, was in truth an act of deep love. He didn't cast Uranus away. He gave space. He allowed room for stillness and silence once more. The stars blinked in understanding. From that moment, the world turned its cycles. Birth, rest, bloom, rest again. Cronus became the silent drumbeat beneath all things. The tick of a leaf falling, the hush between tides, the sigh between dreams. He fathered new titans, beings of great stillness and strength. Rhea, Oceanus, Tethys, Mnemosyne, each one carrying an essence of the cosmos. Rhea, especially, stood beside Cronus as his heart, his still center. She reminded him that time is not only a path, it is a circle. Together they bore the gods to come, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. But Cronus, frightened by whispers of the future, gently placed each child back into the fold of Gaia. He did not do this with cruelty. He did it with fear, the kind of fear that lives in quiet corners of the heart. The fear of endings, but time does not stop, not even for the one who watches it. Rhea, sorrowful but wise, took her final child, Zeus, and swaddled him not in cloth, but in wind and cloud. She hid him where Cronus would not hear his breath. And as Zeus grew, so too did the slow realization that even keepers must one day rest. Cronus, the gentle clock, began to fade, not into nothing, but into everything. He became the echo in every ticking clock, the pause before a heartbeat, the slowness of falling leaves. He still exists in every moment you choose to savor, in every blink between words, in every memory that returns softer than it arrived. So if tonight you feel the world slow, if time seems to stretch just a little, perhaps Cronus is walking nearby, reminding you that sleep too is sacred. Let the weight of the hours fall away. Let the ticking hush itself. You are in the care of time's gentlest keeper now. Close your eyes and drift. Chapter 4. Rhea and the Secret Lullaby. In the quiet lull between tides of time, Rhea stood still like a lullaby not yet sung. Her eyes held galaxies, not from power, but from the wisdom of silence. Unlike her siblings who thundered or surged, Rhea moved like dew, unnoticed but essential. Where Cronus was the keeper of time, Rhea was the rhythm within it. A pulse, a breath, a heartbeat that cradled the cosmos. She walked softly through the world, a tightness with the voice of wind in trees. Flowers opened in her footsteps, not because she commanded them, but because they felt safe enough to bloom. The animals followed her, not out of fear, but from longing, for peace, for calm, for the sleep of the earth itself. Rhea and Cronus had borne many children, each glowing with potential and divine spark. But with every birth, Cronus's fear deepened. The old prophecy echoed in his chest like a ticking clock. One of your children will end you. And so, Cronus, trembling in the shadows of his own story, swallowed each newborn gently, like a lull trying to delay the night. Rhea, heartbroken but quiet, did not weep aloud. Her sorrow was a soft thing, like rain sliding down windows, but inside her grew a decision, slow and certain, like a tree promising spring in the depth of winter. When the time came for her sixth child, she wrapped him not in swaddling cloth, but in storm. She named him Zeus and placed him in a cave cradled by Gaia's green breath. There, beneath the canopy of the world, Zeus was rocked by nature herself. The drip of cave water, the song of hidden birds, the hum of moss-covered stone. To Cronus, Rhea handed a bundle not of life, but of stone, wrapped in soft cloth, heavy with silence. And Cronus, weary from the weight of watching, accepted it. He did not know. Perhaps part of him didn't want to. Rhea returned each day to the forest, not to speak, but to listen. To Zeus, to the wind, to the promise of a future not ruled by fear. And slowly, the forest began to sing back. Nymphs came with laughter in their eyes. Birds perched closer. Even shadows softened. All were drawn to the growing light, the spark of something different. Zeus grew like a question mark, curious, reaching, wondering. And Rhea, though she never told him everything, hummed the truth into his sleep. Her lullabies were layered, with myth, with history, with hope. She taught him not how to conquer, but how to listen. Not how to demand, but how to wait. How even gods need patience. How even thunder needs silence. In time, the day would come when Zeus would challenge Cronus. But this chapter wasn't about battle. It was about the gentle rebellion of love. The kind of quiet that changes everything. One night, as stars whispered stories into the forest, Rhea sat beside Zeus and touched his forehead with a kiss made of wind and time. "You are not born to destroy," she murmured. "You are born to remind the world how to begin again." And so, wrapped in shadows and safety, Zeus slept, not as a warrior, not yet a god, but as a boy with the weight of the sky not yet on his shoulders. And Rhea, with her hands pressed to the mossy earth, eyes to the sky, heart stitched with silence, waited for time to turn, for fate to soften, for the hush before thunder. Chapter 5. The rise of young Zeus, far from the golden halls of Cronus and the sorrowful hush of Rhea. Young Zeus was raised by the hidden heart of the earth. The cave in which he lay as an infant was not silent, but rather alive with whispers, not voices of people, but of stone and root, of wind echoing wisdom, of time moving beneath the earth like a pulse. Gaia herself had gifted this sacred space. Its walls glittered faintly with silver veins of mineral, glowing like starlight trapped in rock. Each night, nymphs danced beyond the cave's mouth, their laughter ringing soft and high like wind chimes in the distance. Curetes, warrior spirits, clashed their bronze shields in rhythmic noise to mask his cries from the all-hearing ears of Cronus. The forest itself conspired to protect him, each creature carrying a secret, each leaf a watchful eye. His caretaker was Amalthea, a divine goat whose milk nourished him with strength not just of body, but of soul. Her horns curved like moons and shimmered faintly under the firefly's glow. She sang to him in tones no human ear could translate, lullabies written in stars and clover. From her, Zeus learned the language of loyalty. By the time he could walk, he was not just strong, but thoughtful. The nymphs taught him dance, balance, and song. The stones taught him patience. The rains taught him rhythm. And Rhea, when she could steal away unnoticed, whispered stories into his dreams of power, of prophecy, of the world that waited for him. He did not know exactly what he was to become, but he felt it, a hum beneath his skin, like the sky had tethered itself to his bones. He would sit for hours at the edge of a cliff, gazing into the endless canopy of trees, rain falling gently over his shoulders, imagining a world where the stars bowed to him and the winds answered his call. And then came the dreams. Each night, the same vision. A tall figure cloaked in mist, standing atop a mountain, arms outstretched, thunder cracking like applause. Zeus always saw it from behind, never seeing the figure's face, but he knew, deep in his bones, that it was him, or rather, who he was becoming. One night, a storm unlike any the cave had ever seen shook the mountains. Thunder rolled like drums of war. Lightning slashed the sky open. Zeus stood outside the cave, soaked to the skin, staring into the chaos. His heart did not race. Instead, it slowed, matched the rhythm, matched the power. And then he raised his hand. The sky paused, just for a moment. A single flash of lightning bent unnaturally, drawn toward his palm. It did not strike him. It kissed his fingertips, then vanished. The nymphs wept. The forest grew still. Even the rain softened. That night, Rhea came to him in tears. But they were not tears of sorrow. She wrapped him in her arms, though he was nearly her height now, and whispered, "It is time." "What must I do?" Zeus asked. "You must free your brothers and sisters," she said. "You must bring back balance, and to do that, you must face your father." The words didn't shake him. They settled in him like stone, like roots. Together, Rhea and Zeus devised a plan. First, they traveled by night to meet Metis, the goddess of deep thought and wise counsel. She taught Zeus the art of cunning. She brewed for him a potion from bitter herbs, moonflower, and crushed pearls, a draught that would force Cronus to regurgitate what he had swallowed. But before they left, Zeus stood alone beneath a sacred tree. The stars blinked above like eyes. He closed his eyes and whispered to the sky, "If I fail, let me fall with thunder." The world answered with silence. Cronus still ruled from his throne of stone, weary yet stubborn. When Zeus approached, cloaked in anonymity, Cronus welcomed him without suspicion. There was something familiar in the boy's eyes, but he dismissed it. Age had dulled his sharpness. Zeus offered him the potion as a gift. "To ease your dreams, my lord." Cronus drank, and the world began to shake. One by one, the children of Rhea were returned to the world: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. Each emerged drenched in golden light, dazed but alive. The earth wept with joy. The skies opened wide. Cronus roared, his fury sharp and sudden. But it was too late. The children he had tried to suppress now stood before him, not as infants, but as immortals. And Zeus, no longer a boy, no longer a whisper, stood at their head. This chapter did not end in war. Not yet. This was the gathering, the silent call before the storm. The moment the balance began to shift. Zeus turned to his siblings and said, only one word. Rise. And they did. Together, like dawn. Chapter 6. The War of the Heavens. The silence after Cronus' fall was not peace. It was the breath before the scream. For all their power, the children of Cronus were not yet gods of dominion. They were immortals untested, deities without thrones. Their escape from Cronus' belly had returned them to life, but not to rule. Cronus may have been weakened, but he was not defeated, and the Titans who served him were not ready to surrender their hold on the cosmos. High in the sky above Mount Olympus, where the Titans had built their stronghold from black stone and forgotten light, rumblings of war began to stir. It started with whispers, ocean tides shifting unnaturally, clouds swirling into jagged spirals, volcanoes smoldering with restless fury. Gaia, the Earth Mother, watched from her deep domain, knowing her children would once again face each other in celestial fury. Zeus, now a young god burning with purpose, called his siblings to Mount Olympus, a great peak veiled in cloud and mystery. It was here, he proclaimed, that the new order would rise. Olympus was untouched by Titan hands, sacred and clear. The wind obeyed no master here. It listened only to those who could speak the language of destiny. In the shadow of Olympus, the first council of gods was held. Hades stood stoic and dark-eyed, already attuned to the whispers of the underworld. Poseidon, wild as the tide, raged against the old world's cruelty. Hera, fierce and watchful, swore vengeance not just for her captivity, but for the world women would inherit. Demeter wept for the wounded earth, and Hestia, warm and calm, vowed to protect what little peace remained. Zeus stood among them, thunder humming in his breath. We must end the age of fear, he said. We must end the reign of Cronus. But war against the Titans was not a battle of swords and screams. It was a war of the cosmos, a tearing of time and fate. The Titans controlled the very structure of the world. Hyperion held the sun, Oceanus cradled the seas, Atlas bore the sky, and Coeus, the intellect of stars, saw all outcomes and their endings. The war that came to be was known as the Titanomachy. For 10 years, sky and earth shattered. The sun did not rise as it once had. It flickered between days and darkness. Rain fell upward. Mountains moved. Mortals, barely crawling from their caves of fire, saw omens in the skies and hid from the warring heavens. Zeus led the charge not with brute force, but with strategy born from Metis and forged in the quiet of his youth. He rode chariots of lightning, striking from above with speed and fury. Hades carved pathways through the roots of the world, striking from below, using shadows and death itself. Poseidon tore the sea from its slumber, drowning entire legions of Titans under waves that clawed at the sky. But it was not enough. Cronus stood vast and impossible, wielding a sickle that once cut the heavens themselves. Each time Zeus struck, Cronus endured. The old king had not lived for eons without learning to outlast storms. He wielded not just power, but time, slowing it, twisting it, trapping gods in moments that seemed eternal. Desperate, the young gods turned to their oldest allies. Deep in the molten bones of the earth lived the Cyclopes, ancient one-eyed smiths who had once built the sickle for Cronus. They had been imprisoned by him for their disobedience. Now freed by Zeus, they forged for him 3 weapons that would turn the tide. For Zeus, the master bolt, a thunder strike that could cleave time in half. For Poseidon, the trident, a weapon that could shake the earth and split the sea. For Hades, the helmet of invisibility, a helm that made the unseen terrifying. With these, the gods returned to war not as children, but as forces of nature. In the final battle on Mount Olympus, the sky cracked open. Zeus hurled the master bolt with a cry that echoed across galaxies. It struck Cronus in the chest, not to kill, but to unmake. Time unraveled, the sickle fell. Cronus collapsed not as a corpse, but as dust swept into the void. The Titans were cast into Tartarus, a prison forged in nightmare. Only a few, like Prometheus and Oceanus, were spared for their defiance against Cronus. When the dust settled and the stars realigned, the gods stood atop Olympus, not just as survivors, but as rulers. Zeus was crowned king of the heavens, Poseidon claimed the seas, Hades ruled the underworld, and so began the age of the Olympians. But Gaia watched still, and in her eyes a warning grew. For every rise must cast a shadow. And in the depths of the earth, an ancient being stirred. Its name was Typhon. Chapter 7. Typhon, the God-Eater. Though Cronus had fallen and the Titans lay broken in Tartarus, the cosmos did not breathe in peace. Beneath the skin of the earth, in the caverns forgotten even by time, something older than war stirred. It pulsed like a wound in the world, a deep, endless fury, born not of power, but of betrayal. Gaia, the Earth Mother, felt that wound. Cronus was her son. The Titans were her children. Though they had erred, though they had ruled with cruelty, they were born of her body and bone. And when they were cast into Tartarus, buried in chains crafted by gods who once nursed at her roots, something in Gaia broke. She did not scream. She did not shake. She birthed. From her anguish came a force unlike any the world had ever seen. Typhon, the storm made flesh, the God-Eater, the final vengeance of the earth. Typhon did not walk. He rose. He rose from the floor of the sea, from the cracks in mountains, from the blood of fallen stars. His body was taller than any mountain, his arms covered in wings of smoke and flame. Each of his 100 heads spat a different terror: fire, poison, screams, shadow, plague. His eyes were black suns, and his breath wilted the world. The earth cracked beneath his feet. Rivers boiled, oceans parted. Mortals wept at his name before they could even speak it. The Olympians had claimed their thrones, but now they faced a creature not bound by fate or prophecy. Typhon was not meant to be king. He was meant to end kings. Zeus stood atop Olympus, the master bolt in his grasp, watching as Typhon darkened the horizon. Even the sky recoiled from the beast. Hades sensed it from the depths of the underworld, his kingdom shaking from the creature's approach. Poseidon felt the seas run cold, the tides unsure of their master. The gods rallied quickly. Athena read the omens. Apollo tried to blind the beast with light, but Typhon swallowed the sun whole for a day. Artemis rained arrows on his heads. He crushed them in his fists like ash. Ares met him on the field of battle and was hurled across mountains. Even Hades' helmet of invisibility could not mask the gods from Typhon's fury. Then Zeus met him, not as a son of Cronus, but as a god of Olympus. Their battle shook reality. Thunder split the stars. Typhon's roar cracked planets. The masterbolt struck like creation itself, and Typhon responded with winds that stripped Olympus bare. Forests burned, mountains broke, the sky turned red and bled light. For days they fought, not in minutes or moments, but in ages. Birds forgot to sing, clouds froze in the air, mortals stopped dreaming. And then, at the edge of the world, in the shadow of Mount Etna, Zeus lured Typhon into a trap. He called upon the Cyclopes once more. He begged the rivers to change course. He summoned every ounce of divine energy from the sky and sea. And with a roar that split the clouds open, Zeus struck Typhon with the master bolt, not to destroy, but to bind. The mountain fell. Etna collapsed upon the god-eater, sealing him in molten stone. From that day forward, when Etna smokes, it is said to be Typhon dreaming of vengeance. The earth fell silent again, but it was a silence filled with scars. Zeus returned to Olympus, his robe torn, his eyes heavy. He had won, but not without cost. The gods had seen their first true test. They had survived, but now they knew that even Olympus could bleed. And in the silence after the war, Gaia whispered still. There were other children, other monsters. The age of gods was far from secure. Chapter 8. Echidna, the mother of monsters. Beneath the ashes of Typhon's fury, the earth stirred once more. Though the god-eater had been sealed beneath Mount Etna, Gaia's vengeance was not yet spent. She reached into her deepest roots, into the veins of magma and shadow, and from her sorrow she crafted one more nightmare, one not meant to destroy Olympus in a single blow, but to haunt it forever. Her name was Echidna. Half woman, half serpent, Echidna's beauty was a mirage. Golden hair, luminous eyes, a voice like honeyed thunder. But from her waist down, her body twisted into the scaled, coiled terror of an ancient snake. Her fangs were kissed with venom that could unmake immortality. Her skin shimmered like moonlight over a predator's hide. She lived in a cave carved into the side of a forgotten cliff, where dreams went to die. But Echidna was not made to rule. She was made to birth. One by one, from the union of Echidna and Typhon, before he was entombed, came the children who would make even gods tremble. The chimera with a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent for a tail, breathing fire from all three. The hydra with her many heads that grew back twofold for each one severed. The Nemean lion, whose golden fur could not be pierced by any blade. The Cerberus, the hound with 3 heads, and a hunger for mortal souls, set to guard the gates of Hades. The Sphinx, who whispered riddles that broke the minds of men. And Ladon, the dragon who coiled around the tree of the golden apples in the garden of the Hesperides. Each of her children was a question hurled at Olympus. Each of her children was a punishment. The gods looked down and saw a world that should have been settling, now writhing with monsters. Zeus sent heroes, demigods, and even his own children to combat them, not to cleanse the world, but to prove Olympus still held power. But Echidna watched them all. When Heracles battled the Nemean lion, Echidna tasted the blood in the wind. When Perseus rode past the lair of the Chimera, she hissed in warning. When Odysseus whispered past Scylla, another of her lesser daughters, Echidna smiled. She did not rage. She did not rise. She waited. The Olympians would forget Typhon's wrath, but they would never forget the monsters. And still, in her cavern, Echidna gave birth. One child was born with wings of stone and a scream that shattered glass. He would become the terror of a mountain passes. Another slithered with 9 eyes and cried like a human baby. She would haunt forgotten wells. And in time, legends called her the mother of all monsters. Yet even monsters feel love. When Heracles slew the Hydra, Echidna wept. When Bellerophon struck down the Chimera, she cursed the sky. When Hades placed Cerberus at his gates, Echidna whispered lullabies through the cracks in the world. She never stopped watching. She never stopped creating. And even as mortals built cities, wrote poetry, and praised the gods, they still told tales around fires at night, of things that hunted in the dark, that waited in caves, that slept beneath their beds. They did not know Echidna's name, but they feared her children. And sometimes, when a child looked into the woods and saw 2 glinting eyes staring back, Echidna smiled. Chapter 10, Hades and the Silent Kingdom below. While Olympus bathed in sunlight and glory, and Poseidon ruled the crashing tides, there was a third realm, older, colder, and deeper than any sky or sea. It was the place where time slowed, dreams died, and silence reigned like a monarch. It was the underworld, and it belonged to Hades. Born with his brothers Zeus and Poseidon, Hades drew the shortest lot when they divided the world. But what seemed like a loss became a kingdom like no other, mysterious, vast, and feared by all. He built his realm beneath the earth, where shadows whispered and the river Styx curled through obsidian halls. The dead came by the thousands, ferried by Charon, who rowed them across waters black as regret. Souls drifted like mist, forgetting their names, their lives, their loves. But Hades remembered everything. He ruled not with cruelty, but with order. He was no devil, no horned monster. He was a king, just, relentless, watchful. 3 judges stood at his side, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus. They weighed each soul's truth. The pure were sent to the Elysian fields, where golden meadows stretched forever, and peace hummed like a lullaby. The wicked were dragged into Tartarus, a chasm so deep, even the stars had forgotten it. Cerberus, the 3-headed hound, stood guard, eyes blazing, teeth dripping, loyalty unshaken. No one escaped. Above, mortals feared death. Below, Hades watched over its order. Yet even the Lord of Shadows was not immune to longing. He once saw her, Persephone, daughter of Demeter, dancing through a sunlit glade. Her laughter bent flowers toward her like worship. In that moment, something ancient stirred in Hades, not lust, but loneliness. And so he rose from the earth, cracked the meadow open, and pulled her down. Demeter wept. The world grieved with her. Crops withered, rivers shrank. The air grew brittle and thin. Zeus, ever the balancer, intervened. A compromise was struck. Persephone would spend half the year in the light, and half with Hades below. Thus, the seasons were born. But in the underworld, something shifted. The cold halls softened. Flowers bloomed between bones. Persephone, queen of spring and queen of death, carved warmth into stone. Together, they ruled, not in chains, but in balance. And so Hades, the most misunderstood of gods, continued his watch. He did not hunger for worship, nor thunder from the skies. He simply waited, as all things end, and all souls eventually descend. In his silent kingdom there were no lies, no masks, no escape, only truth. And in truth there is peace. The myths, like stars, may fade, but the stories live in fire, in sea, and in shadow. And when sleep takes us gently, when our eyelids fall like dusk, perhaps we walk the halls of the underworld, not with fear, but with understanding. End of the myths that shaped the sky.